Okay, so I think we can start and we let people join eventually as we have to wrap it up.
Sure. Sounds
Like,
good.
all right. So, good evening, one and all. Welcome to our podcast. I am Radhika Dhaya, your host for the day, and the team's executive at PsyConnect. Today, we are taking a significant leap forward in Mind Map April as we embark on a journey through the paths of organizational psychology in India. Now, this topic holds a special place in my heart as an aspiring IO psychologist, and I'm sure many of you share the same excitement. There's been quite a buzz around organizational psychology, and understandably so. I have seen firsthand how much curiosity and confusion there is surrounding the field. People often wonder if there's really a future in it, if it's worth pursuing or not. So, well, today we are going to clear up all those doubts and explore the exciting opportunities that lie ahead. Before we start the session, I would like to inform you that the mics and videos of the participants would be turned off to avoid disturbances during the podcast. Participants will get a chance to put forward their questions. Meanwhile, you can put your questions in the chat box and they would be surely addressed if you want to. So, moving forward, I am extremely delighted to introduce to you all today's speaker, Ms. Srishti Kumar. We are grateful to have you, ma'am, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to connect with you.
Thanks.
Um, so,
Yeah.
so little about the speaker. Ms. Kumar is a senior consultant with the human capital practice at one of the big four firms. With her expertise as an organizational psychologist, she is here to shed light on her topic and offer us valuable insights. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an enlightening conversation. Let's dive deep into the world of organizational psychology in India. So, to begin with, first things first, let's dive into our conversation by exploring the personal journey of our esteemed guest, Miss Srishti Kumar. So, ma'am, could you share with us what inspired you to specialize in the field of industrial organizational psychology and how your journey unfolded in becoming a specialist in this field?
Sure, Radhika. Hey all, hi everyone. Just to give you a brief of how my journey has unfolded, and obviously it's still in the works. Since school, right, I was pretty interested in the field of psychology, but like for most of us, our schooling is a lot more centered around clinical psychology or the aspects around counseling psychology. So my understanding was fairly limited until, let's say, I joined radiation oncology as for my undergrad. That's where I actually, when we started to do a lot more different kinds of papers around different fields of psychology, forensic psychology, it was around counseling, health psychology, biopsychology, and all of that. The field that actually really interested me and intrigued me was actually IO psychology. Having seen my parents in the corporate sector for the longest of times, right? I was often motivated just to understand what exactly makes you feel motivated to come to work every day. What is that the organization is doing? Obviously, besides just roti kapra makan, right? What exactly is the organization giving to people that motivates them to be at work every day, keeps them engaged? How do we resolve conflicts in organization? Because obviously there are people coming from different fields working together with different motives. So all of those things actually, started to intrigue me. I remember going for like one of my practicals to this one of the leading cement organizations, and I just felt like, I'm at home doing those surveys with the employees, talking to them. uh, that is when I started to realize that, it probably is the field that I want to get into. It helps me combine my love for human interaction, because that's what motivates me a lot, along with, along with obviously just putting in my principles of psychology, my understanding of psychology. And that's it. That's how I got into this field. Definitely after undergrad, I got into Delhi University for my master's. It does not specialize, so to say, in IO psychology, but yes, you can choose your papers accordingly, and then you decide if you get the thesis, then what section you work on. I, for instance, did my thesis on understanding workforce dynamics, right? What exactly makes you feel connected to the organization that you work for? How do you identify with the organization? And that definitely, how does that impact your employee engagement levels? And yeah, just that's how it's been with me. Post masters, I started working in this field, worked as an HR for like 6 months, got into consulting, where I feel much more at home, right? Because it's how I basically get encouraged by making workplaces safe, productive, inclusive. And I think that's what has prompted me to enter this field of IO psychology.
Thank you for answering, ma'am. I feel this is quite relatable
Right.
because I am a student and I did not have prior knowledge in school about the field. And
Yeah,
now, as I'm in my master's, I have more knowledge, and I just hope that we could um, inform people more about the field and how it goes and what it is about. So, this is the agenda that brings us today together.
definitely.
Um, so, further, for our listeners who might be new to the field or still exploring the interest, it's essential to have a basic understanding of what organizational psychology is about. So, let's have a few basic questions to set the stage for the discussion. So, ma'am, could you please brief us about what organizational psychology is and how it contributes to organizational success?
Sure. Okay, so I think we would have like a fair knowledge of exactly. So, you can go correlate with words like corporations and organizations, right? So, just to put in layman terms, IO psychology, as the name only suggests, like industrial and organizational psychology, is combining your scientific study of human behavior in organizations and at workplace. And if you remember, I was just mentioning that, I was also focusing on how, people coming from diverse perspectives interact. So even IO psychology not only focuses on the individual in the organization, it also focuses on the group behavior, the organizational behavior as a collective cohort, and applying those knowledge and those principles to solve for problems at work. And what was the second part of the question in terms of understanding how it contributes to organizational success? Yes, definitely.
Yes.
When you do a scientific study of something, you understand the underlying principles. Unless and until you put into practice, right, it's of no use. So I have seen firsthand how IO psychologists are actually contributing to workplaces. It's in terms of just making them more diverse, more inclusive, helping in talent management, helping in management of workplace dynamics, conflict resolutions, negotiations, enabling people further by like just getting into mental health, well-being, all of those aspects which are pretty critical in this day and age. So I sincerely see definitely a lot of scope for IO psychologists to contribute to the success of workplace. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am, it does. So, picking up on your statement about diversity, so we
Yeah.
all know that particularly in the Indian context, India is a developing country with a lot of diversity in culture. So,
Yeah.
in your experience, how do you think that cultural factors influence the practice of industrial organizational psychology in the context of India?
Definitely, right. India not only has, like we all know, right, we have the highest population in the world. Not only do we have the highest population, we also have the highest working population in the world, and we have a growing working population, at least so to say. And unfortunately, it's also the country which does not boast of pretty high employee engagement levels, right? And majority of Indian workers, to be very honest, are extremely disengaged, or are actively disengaged, or are not fully engaged at work. So just bringing in the perspective of understanding how it's unique to India. I wouldn't say it's unique, so to say. Definitely, there are countries where everywhere diversity and these challenges will be in play. But when it comes to understanding the cultural norms, the diversity of the country brings with it its set of challenges and it's also set of opportunities, right? When you have people coming from diverse workplaces, it's a great opportunity for you to now build a more inclusive workplace. You can actually test all your theories, you can test your principles, you can work out how to make the company a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Also, just in terms of understanding how culture plays out, we also have a very hierarchical structure, right? We also, you would know, we are not particularly very excited about work life balance. And that's where our boundaries get blurred a lot, right? So there has to be a strong dedication, there's a lot of dedicated focus on dedication, commitment. I think this is where IO psychologists need to recognize those cultural differences and bring in practices that can promote flexibility, can help out the company and help out the employees work better. Also, another place I feel culture plays an important role is definitely in understanding how what motivates them to come to work, right? Uh, we in India, we obviously focus a lot on collective good. You would have you would have studied this in your psychology also, individualistic versus collectivist. Definitely finance is one part of it, monetary rewards is one part of it, but also, job security, social status, familial responsibilities are pretty important motivators that bring people to work. So if you can actually, tackle that, if you can bring out and tailor your motivation strategies and rewards programs to align with these cultural preferences, I think you're good to go. You're great at building those diversity and diverse workforces in the organization.
Um, Thank you for adding this perspective, ma'am. I think that you're completely right, and setting the context about. I think you like context in relation to India. You've really killed it, because I never thought about it in that sense. So now that we have like a basic understanding about what organizational psychology is, let's address a topic that's on the minds of many aspiring organizational psychologists: the scope and opportunities within the field.
Hmm.
So, understanding the potential paths and avenues available is crucial for anyone who's considering a career, right? So, let's explore the vast landscape now. So, for the basics, ma'am, can you please outline the educational and professional steps one should consider when pursuing a career in IO psychology, particularly in the context of India?
Sure, definitely. See, the usual would be to obviously start by earning a bachelor's degree in psychology. I feel this is very, very important as it sets your base for your knowledge. Also, those 3 years, at least in India, right? It's a 3-year program. You learn not only about the IO psychology part of it, but you also understand different, social psychology, cultural psychology, and those are the factors that are also working, in organizations. If it may not come into the purview of IO psychology, but are definitely critical factors. So, bachelor's would be definitely one that thing that you need to do first. Uh, while IO psychology may not be a common undergraduate program, it also lays very strong foundation for your statistics, research methods, understanding of organizational behavior. At least that's what I felt in my college and undergrad, which set the base for my further knowledge. Pursuing a master's, now that I'll be very honest, Radhika, here, right? I have seen varied perspectives. A lot of people have come to me and told me, and obviously you will also see MBA as being the very, very important aspect, right? So definitely MBA has its perks. It's unfortunately in India still a very, very important degree to get. It also opens a lot more doors for you, right? Uh, but if let's say you are like me, I was pretty motivated about just going into psychology rather than just going into the entire gamut of MBA. You can either pursue a master's or you can actually go for doctoral programs. This is something that I have realized in the last 10 years, in the last 6 years actually, since I started working, that there are very good doctoral programs. Probably not in India. I'm not sure if there are much, unless they have come about. But definitely in abroad, you have pretty amazing doctoral programs where people are studying things like motivation and all. Though obviously are very general, but people are also studying things like uh, you know the dynamics at workplace, all of those things. So doctoral program, if you can definitely go and explore that. If you're Yeah, if that can happen, that's a great opportunity. Or you can obviously pursue, like, DU has a great master's program. I think Christ also has a master's program in IO psychology, so those might be very important. Look for universities and institutions that are also offering psychology related to other fields such as organizational behavior or HRM, human resource management. Gain research experience during your graduate studies. This can involve, any research projects or publishing papers that you can do. Like, for instance, I did a thesis that greatly enabled me to just understand employees as well. And as for the scope, uh, I think 10 years back, definitely there was a lot lesser scope, not just in IO psychology, but across the field of psychology, right? But now we are seeing that psychology has become the buzzword everywhere, whether it's clinical psychology, counseling psychology, even IO psychology. I'm seeing a lot more great opportunities coming about. It's not just restricted to the field of HR, so to say. which was the case when even I did my masters. That you feel that HR is the only sector that you can get into. That's actually
Right.
not true. You can actually get into very good consulting organizations are hiring IO psychologists. So yeah, that's the trajectory. At least I have followed and I've seen people following here.
Right, I do get it, and the dilemma of doing, a master's, like a MBA or a master's, is like it's real, right? Because the MBA folks are obviously preferred more,
Yep.
um, but I think that the scope for IO psychology is also opening up a bit. But
It's
I think
a lot more in the recent years, at least in the big fours that I've been working with. There is a lot of scope, to be very honest. So yeah, don't be dejected, guys. It's nice.
So coming up to this, so as you've mentioned that there is scope in the field, right? So
Hmm.
can you please brief us about like different paths and job roles aspiring IO psychologists could look for in organizations?
Definitely. Like I said, HR definitely is one of the areas. If that interests you, you can get into it. HR business partners, HR managers, all of those people are doing IO psychologists can get into it. So I would rather, let's say, divide it into two areas, right? There's internal consulting, let's say, which is basically working in a larger organization as part of the OD organizational development team or as part of their HR team. However, other places like external consulting, which is what I am a part of right now, big four firms like EY, Deloitte, even Aon, Korn Ferry. These are companies which are hiring IO psychologists in the bulk because they have a strong people advisory practice, and I think who understands people better than IO psychologists, right? So you can work in those fields. You can also work as a behavioral scientist. I know one of the leading software companies actually has a very good program for behavioral scientists at workplace. So that is one of the areas. And in marketing, yes, understanding consumer behavior. So a lot of marketing firms are also hiring IO psychologists just from the perspective of understanding people, understanding the consumers that they work with. So these are pretty much the fields that you can get into from IO psychology. Apart from obviously lecturership, getting into the academics, that's a different academia is a different field altogether. Then
Right. So I just have like a personal question here.
yeah.
So as you mentioned like the big four, right?
Hmm.
So initially, if like a person studying IO psychology, begins with an entry level job.
Yeah.
So what kind of roles could we look for? Because it's pretty difficult to navigate
Hmm.
um, the job role names and what people actually require for those entry level jobs and how to make up your way to those big fours, because big fours definitely do not prefer freshers, right? Some might, but mostly they don't. So
Hmm.
what is the path up to there?
Okay, now very good question. I also grappled with the same problem, to be very honest. But see, my firm, I can't name it for confidentiality purposes, but definitely we do hire from undergrad colleges, right? I know people who have come from my college working with me right now, so they were hired as freshers. Obviously, if you're coming only from an undergrad perspective, with just an undergrad psychology program, then you usually get the position of an analyst, which is it. See, consulting kana it's a different hierarchy altogether. It's not executive, senior executive, it's more in terms of analyst, consultant, senior consultant, and so on and so forth, right? Till you reach the partner level. So big fours are hiring. They are hiring freshers. They will hire mostly at the analyst level. Let's say if you're coming with a good master's degree or a doctoral degree, then you might just be hired at a level up, which is at the consultant or a senior consultant level, right? Uh, if you are a person who's come with a doctoral degree in like let's say after 20 years, you might just come at a partner level because you have a lot more research with you, right? If you are looking to apply, I would really recommend definitely, apart from if you're from like an undergrad program, people who are here, see if your college placements allow for these big four firms as well. If they are visiting your college, elsewise you can always reach out, check out their careers pages, etc., and look out for opportunities.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for clarifying this. So, I just wanted to know that, navigating to navigating the path to employability seems like really daunting. So, However, there might be some key strategies that significantly enhance your prospects in the same field, right? So
Hmm.
my question is that what key skills and competencies do the firms look for, or are essential for someone who's aspiring to become an industrial organizational psychologist, and how to develop these skills during the education? So basically, what is it that you could have, like the skills and competencies which can get you hired?
Besides your education, obviously having a strong foundation in IO psychology and psychology will be critical. I feel, the softer skills are very important, right? That's what at least I have realized in my life. Having very good interpersonal communication skills, because as an IO psychologist, you'll be, working day in, day out, talking to people. Build that. Very, very critical. If you're in a consulting firm, you're going to be working with clients, right? So you need to build that understanding. Very important. Then obviously, analytics, analysis, research methods, extremely important skills to develop when you're getting into this field. Other than that, I think verbal communication skills, like I mentioned, understanding of the organizations, how attuned are to you to just figuring out what are the common challenges that the people are facing in organizations. So I think those are the critical things I feel are very, very important when you get into this field and you start working in an organization.
But could you mention something that could, set somebody apart? Like, there's a hell lot of competition. There's
Hmm.
like a whole rat race going on for like jobs, and there is also like a scarcity of jobs right now in India. So, what is it that like a person who's aspiring to score a job could do to, to set them apart from the others?
Um, in my experience, your ability to make relationships, your ability to connect with people, whether it's you making a program, let's say on just a diverse program, right? How do you make something unless and until you understand the problems of people? It's your ability, it's your stakeholder management skills, very, very critical when you get into this field. Your ability to research, right? Your research skills are extremely important, because even today, right, I am working in a corporate sector. You would assume that you don't need research skills, but I am doing research day in, day out. With AI coming into place, just being aware of the global challenges that are happening. So if you were to understand, like, ask me what sets you apart and what's one thing that will really like make success, is definitely your ability to stakeholder manage, your ability to critically think and come up with solutions which actually work for the organization. It's not just theoretical knowledge that I can take my let's say book and bring into organization. That doesn't work. It's all of those things that are critical. Does that answer? Sorry.
Right, ma'am. So, as you mentioned, putting theory into practice, right?
Yeah.
So, my next question is regarding that only. So, for students who are considering the field, right? So, what advice do you have regarding internships, networking, or maybe gaining practical experience to enhance their, chances of employability?
Um, Good question, but you also have answered. So I'll tell you, in terms of networking, building a strong professional network is critical everywhere, but more so in fields like IO psychology, where it's still an upcoming field, right? Attend conferences, see other organizations. So you would know of Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, SIOP, right? Even our firm has partnered with them on a couple of conferences. In terms of just going to these conferences, network, meet with people, understand exactly what is the kind of work that is happening, right? For instance, I did not know the amount of work that is happening in the field of assessments. There's so many great certifications that people can get and get into. So that actually came about just through networking. So networking, one, definitely very, very important when you get into this field. Can happen through conferences, can happen through your other personal networks, just being in touch with people. LinkedIn is a great source now, right? Just see, for instance, what is happening in this field, what are the global trends that are emerging. Uh, those are the things I think very important. In terms of networking, I've answered, right? What was the other thing that you asked? Internship. Oh, yeah, very, very important. I think my internship when I worked in masters, it really set my base in terms of understanding the corporate life more than anything. just that how there are so many departments, how these people are working, what are exactly the areas I can get into, how do leaders interact with people. So in terms of just that, internships you can get into from LinkedIn, following up with people, or you can apply to grow good programs. I think large global companies have these summer internship programs, right? Seek out these programs. Check out. I think Google has one. So just check out summer internship programs that are happening. Apply. It may not be paid, so to say, but definitely if you perform really well, good firms actually retain you, right? It's not a fake thing. I have seen people getting retained through an internship, which they did for unpaid, right? But they get retained and they start working their way up the ladder. So that is how you can get into this field. So from, let's say, networking, or from the perspective of internships.
Right. So I would just say that, like as you shared, that it's pretty important to network, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but there are not, ample of opportunities for like interns to learn,
Hmm.
because I myself have faced the same. Applying for internships and then getting the internship is another thing. But then, when you start working, it's all about you pouring your heart out to the organization and not getting something in return. So,
Yeah.
um, like,
Okay.
could you just advise people on how to, like, what should be the right fit initially, like how to go for it?
Um. Okay. Can you actually just give me one of the challenges that you would have faced? I'm sorry if I missed that out. If you could just repeat that part.
Right. So one of the challenges which I faced was that when I got an internship, right? So
Yeah.
it was solely on what I already knew, and
Hmm.
nothing related to what I could learn.
Okay.
So, how to navigate those maybe job descriptions, internship descriptions, and responsibilities, so that it could provide like an equal learning opportunity to the students as well.
See, obviously, Radhika, there will never be a one-to-one mapping, right? If you have studied, let's say, motivation in college, and you're thinking that your job description will mention that, that's not gonna happen, right? This is not how job descriptions are also built, and I think that will also be setting you up for failure in that internship, right? Unless, let's say, you are thinking of getting into an internship purely for rewards purposes, let's say rewards management, right? Then that will be an internship that will mention that for you. You're getting into something which is purely from the perspective of diversity. So there are a lot of job descriptions where people are hiring for diversity practice, etc. uh, in terms of how do you navigate your way through all of it, is just giving it time, to be very honest, right? Do not think that just because you've entered an internship, it's gonna be from day one. That's not gonna happen, right? It's obviously a learning curve. uh, Also think of it from this perspective. You might just not be learning exactly, like I said, one to one, but you will be learning and getting a lot more knowledge in terms of just workflows dynamics. For instance, the internship that I did, I was designing an induction program, no relation to psychology whatsoever. But one thing that I could actually do, and that was an assignment that I went to my internship manager with, and I was just like, I want to do something around mentorship. You have a lot of people coming in from these B schools. Why don't we create a mentorship program for them? So that was something that I brought into this organization. Whether or not it gets implemented, but that's something at least I could get into and understand from the workplace that I was working at. So I feel that's how you navigate. It's just going through the rut of it and then coming into play.
Right, I get it. I understand now.
Okay.
Like another personal question which I had was that if like somebody wants to get into consultancy, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of confusion around the entry level path. So, could you go into HR and then get into consultancy, or is there like a specific field like learning and development or talent acquisition, maybe? So, what is it like in an entry level job that leads you there to the end level consulting?
See, I tell you, at an entry level position, um, let's say you just worked in HR for 6 months and then you're thinking you'll move into and transit into consulting. That'll be a little tricky, to be very honest, because then you don't even have an experience of HR, so to say. But let's say you worked in the field of HR for good 5-6 years or 3-4 years even, right? Whether it's in learning, whether it's in performance management, whether it's in talent act, recruitment, all of these things, you can move into consulting. That's not a problem. I have seen people moving into consulting after 10 years of experience. I have seen people moving into consulting, like me, for instance. I worked for 6 months in HR. I had to do a startup for like 1.5 year because it was important for me to gain the experience of managing clients, right? That was critical for me to get into the field of consulting. But yes, HR say you can go into consulting. If not HR, then directly apply for consulting firms. Then you definitely get an experience of everything, right? You work as an analyst, you definitely work on a lot more projects of different kinds. It can be learning, it can be performance management, it can be total rewards management, for instance. And then you can decide your field of specialization as you move up the ladder. So also just a note here, some firms will be hiring in their people practice, in the human capital practice. Some boutique firms, for instance, which are, let's say, only focused on assessments or are only focused on leadership, they will be hiring only for that practice. Then you will not be able to get into the other different fields of psychology if you were looking for it. That just be focused on that part of practice that they follow.
Right, but you could always make a shift, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And could you just brief us up about L&D a bit? Like, what is it about and how does it work?
Yeah. There are two ways, okay? So there is L&D in the normal HR organizations, right? Like I said, internal consulting. Let's call it internal consulting. Now, these folks are more interested in building programs, building learning interventions, training programs for the people within the organization. A lot of firms are getting into partnership with a lot of consulting firms to bring in that practice, right? Uh, so that's the L&D practice within an organization, within the internal organization. If you get into the consulting part of it, uh, many organizations are focusing on things like e-learning. That's definitely coming up. Just making self-paced learning a norm in the organization. It can be around leadership learning. It can be around leadership training. It can be around, let's say there's an important implementation that has happened. So training people on that change part of it. That's all covered under L&D. That space, entire space, the gamut it's covering, it's all focused on this. It's basically just upskilling the people, whether it's within the organization or in collaboration with a consulting organization. So yeah, that's all there. Also, Radhika, you'll just have to give me a moment. I think I'll have to plug my charger. I'm so sorry with that. Just give me one moment. I'll be back.
You can, right.
Yeah, let's get started. Sorry.
No problem, ma'am.
Any further questions under the L&D space?
Yeah, so my question arises because L&D is a lot in talk, right? Because of AI and the fourth revolution and stuff.
Yeah.
Are there like any additional skills that you would recommend to people in context with the fourth industrial revolution?
Okay, so see, that fourth industrial revolution came in more, has had more impact, let's say, in the manufacturing sector. So definitely we have seen, because of that coming up, a lot of manufacturing companies actually getting into training their people on the new age principles of, let's say, supply chain, all of those things, right? If that's the perspective you're coming from. In terms of AI, right? With learning becoming the norm, I am sure you would also agree that not everyone is very excited about learning.
Right.
All organizations have learning programs, right? Do you think employees are excited about learning? It has its perks, right? So, but definitely it's an important field that is upcoming. In terms of the skills or competencies, it's the usual, right? It's just being able to recognize the challenges, right? People do not want to learn in classrooms anymore. They want to learn. That's extremely critical, but obviously you have to, complement that with e-learnings, complement that with self-paced learning programs. A lot of organizations are, tying up with these universities to offer leadership training programs, leadership certifications, because that gives an employee the sense that, the organization is looking out for me. So definitely L&D is an upcoming space. I will not deny that, and it'll keep growing, right? Because it'll obviously employees are evolving, trends are evolving, so learning will keep evolving as well. And in terms of the skills, yeah, it'll just be the general, right? Communication, being able to build those programs, being able to partner with these programs, vendor negotiation, very, very important when it comes to L&D. How well are you able to onboard the vendors who are going to take the trainings in your organization? Very important in those respects.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Just like a last question related to skills.
Yeah.
Are like the skills related to languages, like programming languages, R and SPSS and Python, are these really necessary, like to start? Because I have seen, like, some of the requirements in some of the job descriptions, but is it like very necessary to have these skills, or you could do without them?
You really can do without them. I am doing without them. I don't know what job descriptions you've seen where they're asking for R, especially in terms of higher psychology. I can understand, yes, definitely Power BI, SPSS, those are still important because, when you deal with heavy data, those are critical. People analytics is coming up, right, everywhere. People analytics is the buzzword. And therein you do need Power BI. You do need understanding of Excel and all of that. The Python and all, I don't think. I think you can do away with them if it's not something you're particularly interested in. Not really important in organization, so to say.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing it up. So,
No.
as we near the end of our discussion, let's turn our gaze towards the future. The field of IO psychology is ever evolving and adapting to the changing landscape of workplaces. So, in our final segment, we'll pose a few futuristic questions exploring the potential trends and developments that could shape the future of organizational psychology. So, ma'am, how has the field of industrial organizational psychology evolved in India, and what emerging trends do you foresee shaping the future of this field?
See, definitely there has been an increased recognition of the importance of biopsychology in India, not just driven by the growing working population, but also the growing recognition and enhancing organizational effectiveness. It's your employees who perform and how the organization performs, right? Improving employee engagement, addressing workplace challenges. Many organizations are seeking, the expertise of organizational psychologists to increase their human capital and achieve their strategic goals, right? So, like for instance, you mentioned learning. I have seen a lot of organizations actually building out matrices which relate your learning with the organizational performance. So those correlations are important for us to also draw when we are implementing any learning program, so to say, right? In terms of other fields that are coming up, there is heightened awareness of mental well-being. Very, very important, extremely critical. So we have growing workplace lifestyle challenges, especially with the COVID hitting, right? Definitely it did come back in 2020. It still has its bearing, so to say, right now on employees, especially if you're in hybrid workplaces, then that work-life balance, for instance, I said, has been very, very blurred. So in that respect, there is a lot of scope for IS psychologists to get into building well-being programs, counseling and place wellness, right? And in terms of diversity and inclusion, which I've been talking about, and I don't think I need to get into it, But yes, we need women in board. We need more inclusive workplaces with a lot of more people understanding and coming out with their problems. So that is important. Then, like I mentioned, data analytics and people analytics. Uh, every organization is analyzing workplace data and creating data driven decision making in HR, because it's no longer just giving people money, right? It's about your workplace motivation programs, your rewards, your total compensation programs, how they relate to actual data of people. That's I think AI, very, very important. AI is impacting humans at a global level. How do you actually make AI your friend rather than your foe, right, at the workplace? This is where IO psychologists have a huge role to play in integrating work with AI and bringing those practices. So I think yes, there is a lot of scope for IO psychologists now to work in firms. It's no longer just, HR, like I said. It's a lot of other fields that you can get into. Behavioral scientists, understanding consumer behaviors. So yeah, very, very, there's a lot of scope for people to get into now.
Thank you for putting it out, ma'am. So my last question would be, what professional organizations or maybe conferences or resources would you recommend for students in India pursuing a career in IO psychology to stay updated and connected within the field and with the trends you just shared about?
Definitely, like I think I remember I mentioned at the starting of the podcast, right? The SIOP, Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology, is an association for IO psychologists worldwide, guys. There are a lot of firms who are doing conferences. I think there's a conference happening in Chicago uh, as we speak right now, right? It's a conference of IO psychologists. So you can get memberships, I think, there. You can try getting into those memberships, seek those resources. They come out with research publications, read them. Harvard, McKinsey, all of these places have great workplace articles. Harvard is there, Wharton is there. They're doing good research in the field of biopsychology. Go through them, right? HBR, Harvard Business Review. Get a subscription, read about the people practices, biopsychology part of it. LinkedIn, great source just to connect with India. You have the Indian Association for Applied Psychology. It's not, let's say, focused purely on IO psychology, but yes, it does give you an opportunity to apply your learnings to different fields of psychology, right? In terms of publications, research gate, all of these things, you can just go through them at your leisure, read as much as you can. There are good courses on Coursera, there are good courses on Udemy. Go through them. I also go through them even today, just to understand what exactly is going on, right? If there are any updates coming about, let's say in the field of learning, for instance, like you mentioned, in the field of training, in the field of diversity, inclusion, what is happening in the world. Because, like I said, right, India is also the place with its challenges, it also gives you a lot more opportunities to practice. Because you have a lot bigger population, you have a lot of scope to build these practices in, let's say, compared to a developed nation where people are very happy in their workplace, right? So I think these are the areas which you can get into. SIOP definitely do subscribe to if you can, and see how what's going on there.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I definitely have a better understanding of what organizational psychology is and about the scope and what I could do, and I would surely work on it eventually. So, if the other people do not have any questions, we could wrap it up. So, I'll just wait for a minute if
Yeah.
somebody has a question. Because I did cover most of the questions which I had received in the forms, right? So
Okay.
I guess we could um, wrap it up. So, before we wrap up, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guest speaker, Ms. Srishti Kumar, for sharing her invaluable insights and expertise, enlightening us on intricacies of organizational psychology. Ma'am, your clarity has undoubtedly dispelled many doubts and inspired us to delve deeper into this fascinating field. And on a very personal note, I took this opportunity really personally and cleared out a lot of my own personal doubts as well. And I was really excited for the session. And it did stand up to my expectations. So thank you so much for connecting with us and giving us an opportunity to learn from you and from your experiences.
what
Um,
was of help to you guys. And just do reach out to me if you have any further questions. If I cannot help you, I'll probably connect you with someone. But just don't reach out to me for job opportunities. It's very, very difficult to like get into that.
sure,
But
ma'am, I
yeah, if you
understand.
have any questions, I can help you out with that.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. And lastly, I also want to express my gratitude to all our viewers, both present and future, for tuning in. Your support and engagement fuel our passion for creating meaningful content. Remember to stay connected with us for more exciting podcasts on the horizon. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring the vast world of knowledge with us.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It was a
Radhika,
pleasure.
thanks everyone for joining in. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye, ma'am.